Okay, our first performer tonight is Anne Breedlove in The Sheep. What do you do when you find yourself, after spending 3.5 hours consuming a 5-course meal and a bottle of wine, bicycling back roads in the dark with a bunch of very unhappy sheep? Let's find out. Please welcome Anne Breedlove.
Hello out there. I guess you can see me better than I can see you. Thank you for coming. I'm a newbie to this, so I really appreciate you all being here. It was twilight. A crescent moon cast enough light, just enough light, to help us make our way in the increasing darkness. The warm summer air felt nice. Bats flitted about, though we felt their presence more than saw them. The back road followed a ridge, the moon's light revealing undulating hills going off into the distance. So entranced by the magic of the moment, we dared not speak, pedaling side by side in silence. A herd of sheep, hearing the clicking sound of our bikes, panicked and bolted, frantic to escape, but they knew not what. We had seen them hours earlier on our way to the restaurant. They became a vague, agitated mass, pulsing, shifting, desperate to escape us. Our pas de deux on opposite sides of the fence lasted a good mile or more, all the way back to the farm, for in fact, we all had the same destination in mind. Madame Odette, you see, raised sheep and rabbits. A widow alone, she converted her empty bedrooms into rooms for let. We spent the last 2 nights of our 8-night tour in a bedroom on her top floor with a steeply sloped ceilings and a big window framing a picturesque view of this remote corner of France where the Dordogne meets the Lot. As we readied for sheets for sleep, we could hear the sheep, still agitated by the drama of their dance with us, struggling to settle down. For our 20th wedding anniversary, my husband Jim and I wanted to do something special. We hadn't done much adventuresome travel since having children. We were itching to do something new. Both kids were teenagers, and they just were not so interested in a trip with us just now. We had 2 weeks. Jim said Paris for sure, but I'd sure like to do something new. What could that be, I wondered. Then, on a rainy winter weekend, while browsing Moe's bookstore on Telegraph Ave, I picked up a bicycling magazine. Self-guided French bicycle tours, with the tiny 3-line ad buried in the back classifieds. A mom-and-pop operation run by a Canadian couple. Ruth loved all things French. Rick did all things mechanical. They both liked to travel. They started a travel business, a self-guided travel business. That meant they booked our accommodations, provided the bikes, the helmets, the maps, and transported our suitcases from place to place. All we had to do was follow the maps and cycle rural France. It definitely qualified as different. Still, we took a while to commit. We were cyclists, all right. We bonded over bicycling when we first met on Guerrero and 17th. But touring for 8 days, we just weren't sure how hard that would be. We weren't sure we were in shape. We weren't sure we were strong enough. Jim, the mechanic, also worried about furnished bikes. He knew there are 2 kinds of sprockets, little ones with fast gears for racing and speed, big ones for comfort. He was worried if we got racing gears, we would have a hard time. So we spent as much time as we could in the spring months cycling, as much as we could fit in. He negotiated a 980 work schedule that gave him every other Friday off, allowing us to put in one full day of cycling every other week while the kids were in school and the world was at work. Finally, the first week of June, we bid two pouting teenagers goodbye. They were not happy to learn they were not spending 2 weeks home alone, instead sharing the house with their grandmother. Our stop in Paris was a homecoming of sorts. Our honeymoon hotel was still in business. Hard to believe it hadn't fallen down. Let's Go, the popular cheap travel guide of the 1970s, gave it very high marks for location. Henri Quatre was an extremely funky, worse than shabby chic hotel, a dive, really. Warped floors, wobbly stairs, thin mattresses on creaky metal springs. Do you remember those old metal springs? The toilet to our 5th floor walk-up room was down an outside hallway, but it was on the Ile de la Cité, the heart of Paris, the same island as Notre Dame. So we sacrificed comfort for location, retracing a few old memories for 5 days and making a few new ones before we boarded a train for the historic hilltop town of Gourdon. Ruth, a trim and fit brunette, met us at the train station, loading our suitcases into her car. As she navigated the squirrely streets to that night's lodging, she launched into details about the tour, the region, the cycling, the markets, the food. Stopping in the driveway of a relatively modern house just beyond the historic town limits. A rotund Madame Jean in a provincial floral house dress came down the walkway to meet us. Bienvenue à Gourdon, she smiled. Remembering the silly line in my Cal introductory French textbook, I chirped in reply, Je suis heureuse de faire votre connaissance. As the four of us made small talk, a beat-up van pulled in behind Ruth's car. A man in coveralls marked in grease climbed out, obviously Rick. Jim immediately left us to help Rick unload the bikes, happy to discover that the bikes were outfitted for touring. Next morning, we went down for breakfast at Madame Jean's and found a scrumptious breakfast of juice, coffee, tea, baguettes, brioche, croissants. Am I making you hungry yet? Fruit, Nutella, jam, butter, all arranged around a beautiful bouquet of flowers on a dark mahogany sideboard. A young couple from Chicago were on the last day of their tour. Oh, they said, it was so hard. The hills here are so steep. Jim and I immediately looked at one another, wondering what we had gotten ourselves into. After breakfast, leaving our suitcases for Rick to drive to that night's lodging, we bid adieu to Madame Jean and set off. Our maps were color-coded. Yellow lines highlighted the shortest route. Red lines indicated optional loops for those so inclined to do more. We followed the yellow line north and made it to the bustling market town of Souillac just past 11 a.m. We knew from experience that French shops closed promptly for lunch, so we hustled to buy the makings of a picnic. Pâté from the charcuterie, cheese from the fromagerie, a baguette from the boulangerie, pastries from the patisserie, a tomato, some fruit, and a bottle of wine from the épicerie. We pedaled west out of town as the shopkeepers lowered their curtains and locked their doors for their 2-hour lunch break. Walking our bikes down a dirt path to the riverbank, we found a table and benches made out of rough-hewn logs. As the Dordogne slowly rolled past, we savored our well-earned lunch. Jim summed it up best on a postcard home. Paris seems less interesting, he wrote. After lunch, we realized we were a little bit ahead of schedule, so we decided to take one of those optional red loops. Arriving in a sleepy village square, we noticed the church door doors were open. So we leaned our bikes against a bench and tiptoed quietly into this cool, quiet space. The 12th century Romanesque church was filled with eye candy galore, stations of the cross, chandeliers, statues and paintings of saints, alcoves filled with flickering votive candles, a majestic but silent altar, and scores of small white marble plaques etched in black with the single word merci filling an entire wall. I wondered about the stories behind each of those tiles. Every village had a church, though the size and era varied. We found most were open during the day and free to enter, and so fun to explore the artwork inside. Our guide included directions to many of the prestigious chateaux and castles of the region, but we much preferred the humble churches. For their tours required us to know and be on their schedule, wait in line, pay a fee, and go through in a group. The humble village churches we could enjoy at our own pace, at our own time. They suited us just fine. Back on our bikes, we soon stopped at a peeling wood sign, Moulin de la Tour, enticing us down a tree-lined canopied alley to a rundown stone complex. A middle-aged man dressed in a sleeveless blue t-shirt and dirty green apron came out from behind this vast door. Jean-Pierre was reviving the mill and had just started crushing a new batch of walnuts. He welcomed us in behind the door to this cold, dark room to see. A vertical stone wheel about 3 feet in diameter and a foot thick was rolling around and around and around and around on this massive circular stone slab about 4 feet in diameter and 2 feet thick, wrapped around the upper perimeter with an iron belt that had a spout to direct the walnut mash into a trough. The entire movement was generated by this odd iron contraption that went up to the ceiling, across the ceiling, out the building, and connected to a 16th century water wheel, powering the entire process. Jean-Pierre led us across the courtyard to the bottling room, where he whipped out a knife, cut some slices off a batar, opened a brand new bottle of walnut oil, and drizzled it on the slices. It was so delicious, we bought a bottle, Jim carefully nestling it in his pannier. We did not arrive at that night's lodging, La Ferme Fleurie, until 7 p.m., and we weren't wiped out the way the Chicago couple made us fear. We guessed maybe the Bay Area hills are a better training ground for cycle touring than the flat Midwest of Chicago. Our host, a vivacious Madame Martine, came running out to meet us. Zut de l'heure, she exclaimed. Vous êtes très tard, ça va bien. Quel problème, she asked us as she herded us into this cobwebbed, cavernous, ancient barn filled with rusty and dusty farm equipment going back centuries. It took a moment for our eyes to adjust to the dim light and find a space to park our bikes. As we reassured her we were fine, she was very worried about us, for dinner started promptly at 7:30, and we must be showered and dressed appropriately. Eat, straight eat, she urged us as she ushered us into her farmhouse, up the stairs to our room. We were the last ones to be seated at the family-run and farm supply restaurant across the courtyard. Converted from a utilitarian shed, the charming, intimate room had only 6 tables. The rough stone walls were softened by sparkly candles and pretty flowers on crisp white cotton tablecloths. Fortunately, they seated us in the back corner, for the soft murmurs made it clear that everyone else was speaking French. And then the courses began, one after another. 8 o'clock turned into 9, then 10, we struggled to stay upright, wondering when the meal would end. We were certainly hungry enough to enjoy the dinner, but we were plenty tired. Finally, after what we assumed was the last course, we got up to leave. "Mais non," cried the maitre d', "you must return. There is another course, the best for last," he said. Embarrassed, we slunk back to our chairs, embarrassed to make a scene, where we managed to finish off a final dessert course before being allowed to return to our rooms to go to sleep. Between the formidable workout and the exquisite dinner, we were both asleep within seconds of our heads hitting the pillows. 2 days later, we were cycling in the pouring rain from the town of Les Aziz to Faux Lascaux, the famous Paleolithic art cave. The faux part comes from the fact that the French built an exact duplicate of the original for tourists to visit, because the moisture in the breath of the tens of thousands of annual visitors was destroying the 30,000-year-old artwork. We stopped under an awning to catch a break from the rain. "Look," Jim pointed to a sign across the street, "Repas au restaurant." Knocking on the door, a hunched over old lady dressed all in black, her dress to her ankles, welcomed us into her spare kitchen with a roaring fire and an immense hearth. It was a scene straight out of a Hugo novel. Without saying a word, she sat us at an old wood table on creaking chairs, put down 2 piping hot bowls of broth, half a batar of dark brown bread, a big slab of homemade butter, and filled 2 tumblers with red wine from an unlabeled bottle. The soup warmed our damp bodies, and the wine soothed our anxiety about spending all day cycling in the rain. Our last night found us at the sheep and rabbit farm. Unlike Mesdames Jean and Martine, who wore provincial floral house dresses, Madame Odette was a working farmer, raising sheep and rabbits. She welcomed us in thin, worn work pants and rubber boots. She put us in the attic bedroom with a killer view of the countryside. Our tour included 2 special dinners. The first one on our first night, the second one, as it happened, on our final night. There was at Le Vieil Tour yet another farm-restaurant combination. There was a hitch, though. It was 2 miles from the farm, and we had to get there on our own, either walk or bike, for there were no taxis in these boondocks. So we dolled ourselves up in the nicest clothes we had left in our suitcases, smushing out the wrinkles, and biked to the restaurant. Looking around, we hid our bikes behind some bushes before we waltzed into the restaurant, no one the wiser. After yet another unparalleled dining experience, 5 courses in 3+ hours, we retrieved our bikes and set off in the twilight, soon to make our magical rendezvous with Madame Odette's sheep. Needless to say, these 8 days blew us away. The cycling was sheer bliss. As we pedaled the back roads from village to village in rural France, we fell in love with France all over again. We agreed that this trip must be only a beginning. We were determined when we returned home that we would we would figure out how to do what Ruth and Rick introduced us to, just the 2 of us, following the back roads, going down forsaken paths, cycling with sheep, and not just in France. This trip inspired us that we wanted to see the rest of the world on the seats of our own 2 bikes, on our own steam, at our own speed. The question was, did we have what it takes? Could we do it? We had to try to find out. And the story of that journey is in my new book, just released last fall, Part-Time Nomads.
That one. This is right. There you go.
Well, that sounds like a heck of a bicycle trip with, what was that, a 15-course meal? Wow. And breed love, everybody. All right, and now for something completely different. Our next performer is DEON Price in Raised in Hell. This piece is a one-man presentation on the humor and hardship of a dysfunctional upbringing. It touches on a young teenage boy's struggle to survive a challenging family life in a broken home, poverty, and an alcoholic mother. Please welcome DEON Price.
You have no control of the family you're born into. You have no control of the environment that you're forced to live in. But you can control how that environment will affect you. You just got to play with the hand that's being dealt to you, don't you? I wasn't dealt a great hand. Matter of fact, I was dealt a pretty crappy hand and a crappy table. And it went a little stuff like this. No father. Card number 2, alcoholic mother. Card number 3, living in poverty. Card number 4, in and out of foster homes. Card number 5, wrong place, wrong time. During the crack epidemic in the mid-'80s, the worst time in history to be in LA, that's where I was living. Wrong place, wrong time, crack epidemic, violence all over the place. This is my environment. My mother migrated from the South to escape segregation and an abusive alcoholic husband. only to become somewhat of an abusive alcoholic herself. She migrated from the South, and alcohol was a challenge for her. It was a vehicle that caused instability and dysfunction. My mother's drink of choice was a screwdriver. Anybody know what a screwdriver is? Vodka and what? Okay. Orange juice, right? Now, orange juice is clear. Vodka's clear. Vodka don't have no smell to it. So I was thinking it was the orange juice that had her losing her damn mind. She started cussing people out, throwing knives at people. Like, what the hell is in this orange juice that's got her twisted like this? So I was damaged good. So I had this phobia of orange juice all through my childhood. I told my cousins, I said, yeah, you want some orange juice? I'm slapping out of people's hands like something wrong with it. And my uncle would say, hey, something's wrong with this boy. But if he don't pour on something, one more carton of orange, I'm gonna choke the hell out of him. You better get it, right? So needless to say, I was damaged goods. My mother was she had a sharp tongue, right? She would hit us with one of these Southern cliches. You couldn't say nothing to her, right? Anytime she would say something, she would say, we be in trouble. Did I tell you to come to this room? Mama, I was gonna do it. I was gonna be the damn president. When I wanted to do it, well, people in hell wanted ice water. Break something around the house. It was an accident. I didn't mean to do it, and I didn't mean to have your ass, did you? But you're here, aren't you? Mama, it was an accident, and so were you. So she didn't care. She was vicious. She would hit me with all those things, right? And plus, I was prematurely born. I was born a little too early. So I was always a smaller, underdeveloped kid, right? So my development was very small. I was always the shortest and the smallest. I didn't grow. You can see I had a growth spurt at some point, right? But she didn't care. She hit me with all that. She hit me with half-made, homemade, flat ass, no ass. Matter of fact, you ain't got no ass. You just got a line in your butt. Get out of my face, go sit down, sit your ass down. I mean, sit your line down somewhere. She was vicious. She didn't care. But what she was doing actually was preparing me for school. You know how you get bullied and harassed in school? By the time I got to grade school, when the kids start teasing me, I'm like, really? That's all y'all got? I got called worse this morning at home. So I was prepared. So alcoholism eventually led to violence, domestic violence. And I remember the culminating incident that changed everything, right? My mother had 9 kids. I'm the last of 9. And one of my older sisters dropped a bomb that she was pregnant at 16. I'll never forget this. I'm out in the front yard playing. The escalation, argument started. My mother and my sister got into it. It escalated. My mother broke a RC Cola bottle over the counter and started attacking my sister. In an attempt to block the blow, she had ended up with cuts to her hands and her head. And it was a horrible scene. I'm outside. She run outside with blood all through her head. It was a horrible scene. Imagine how traumatizing this was. Instantly, the commotion started in the neighborhood. Police were on the scene. I knew then that things would never be the same. I'm sitting there at 6 years old watching the LAPD police capture my mom. They brought her out of the house. She still had a robe and house shoes on. They put her in a squad car, and I can never forget this. She never broke eye contact with me. She realized that this was traumatic, but she never broke eye contact. I seen my mother being put in a squad car. It was traumatizing. And I would see her go away. I wouldn't see my mom after that for 18 months as a 6-year-old. The only time I would see my mother was through a small, crowded window of a jail visiting center. Or I'm sitting on a hard bench in a courtroom at 6 years old, being asked questions by attorneys and adults about the worst day of my life. Imagine a child, one of the most nurturing things is for a child is the love and cherish and support of their mother, and never being allowed to get that nourishment and that support from your mother at 6. Dangling the most valuable resource in the world for a child is their love of their parent, and never allowing them access to it is inhuman. And I experienced that. So unfortunately, the next few 18 months, we were in and out of what was called the dreadful foster home system. And at the time, LA had the not sophisticated foster home. It was individual warehouses for kids. So evidently, it means either you had family that either couldn't or had no means to take care of it. Either they couldn't want to or they couldn't. So we're in and out of these foster homes. And some family was fortunate enough to keep 4 of these young kids. The most of my older brothers and sisters were on their own. But this one couple was gracious enough to keep 4 of us. Let's call her Miss H. Miss H was a middle-aged woman with her husband. She was kind of unique, but she was also kind of strange. Miss H had dogs, and she would keep dogs in the house. And every now and then, the dogs would take a dump in the middle of the kitchen, right? And it happens. But Miss H, this unique, special woman, would go in the kitchen and pick this dog mess up, fresh, moist dog mess with her bare hands. And immediately she would wash her hands and throw it. But to a kid, we were terrified. We were petrified. That was disgusting to us. We stayed with this woman for over a year. We never allowed this woman to touch her. She don't sit in front of us. She had to come here. No, I did everything I can to avoid this woman touching me. She thought something was wrong with us. She thought we were affection deprived. She had us seeing counselors and therapy. We were like, ain't nothing wrong with us. Something wrong with you. You want to need therapy? Anybody pick up dog shit with their bare hands? They got some school rules, right? That was our mentality. One of the happiest days of my life when I stayed there was my mother was getting released from the county jail. And one of my older sisters was coming to pick us up. So again, we had all our stuff packed up, ready to go. Remember, we was counting how many times she touched you. We have meetings every night. Did she touch you? She touched you. No, she didn't touch me. Right? So on my last day, I was so happy to get the hell out of there. We had our stuff packed up, and Miss H walked up to me and grabbed me by the wrist. DEON, I'm gonna miss you. I was feeling my family in the back. This boo-boo-hair lady done touched my face. I really did need some therapy after that. So we're on our way to reunite with our family. And like my older brother Herman would say, it's better to struggle together than to live well apart. So needless to say, we were under no illusion that we were going to any luxury because my mother was a felon. She had a criminal record. We had no father. She was single. She had 4 younger kids, right? We were nursed on the welfare system. So we weren't going into the lap of luxury. So we went to struggle what we can and we went to middle school. Now I'm in middle school. And my mother doing all she can, but under circumstances, she had to use the resource which wasn't much. So in middle school, which is a critical time for a young person, that's when you establish your identity, your social reputation. So my mother, sweetheart as she was, when she wasn't on them screwdrivers, would go and buy me clothes and shoes from the same place you would get groceries. That's a fashion no-no. You don't get clothes and groceries at the same place. So she bought me these imitation Nikes. They were called Eagles. Eagles were backwards, upside down Nikes. Eagles is Nike spelled backwards. And then they were new at the time. So I didn't know. So I'm in middle school. So I go and step foot on this campus. I didn't know. It was back until the swoosh goes up. These were going down. And I didn't know. Matter of fact, I was dyslexic anyway, so the shit looked normal to me. But as soon as I stepped foot on campus, hey, DEON got upside down Nike. 1 kid, 2 kids, 3 kids, 9 kids follow me around campus, just harassing me all day long. Imagine how traumatizing that was. All day long, these kids following, just clowning me all day about these upside down Nikes. Finally, I got tired, smacked 1 kid in the mouth, went off campus, went home, took those shoes off, dumped them in the garbage, and walked home the rest of the way. That was my situation, just traumatized. If it wasn't the backwards upside down Nikes, it was these Pro Kids. Pro Kids are also imitations. Pro Kids, had 2 stripes. So I learned from this time, so instead of getting clowned again, I would go get me a Sharpie and pin another stripe so they would look like Adidas. Right, I had to be creative. But then I was smart about it, so I kept moving. I don't want nobody looking at these homemade ads. I never stood still. Hey, it's my shit. I never stood still. I don't want nobody to realize I had these homemade Adidas. But I was so petrified, I was so upset. I hated my situation. I didn't hate my mother, but I hated the circumstances she had put me in. And even at that young age, I was thinking, DEON, somehow, somewhere, you gotta get the hell out of here. At that young age. So now, as I went to high school, something strange and sad happened in LA in the mid-80s. If you know anything about LA and the history, crack epidemic hit. And crack was special. We saw people who were normally responsible doing some very strange, addictive things and do anything they could to stay and get high during that time. And I'm going through high school at the time. It was not a place to be. People were selling cars, stealing anything they could to get some funds to pay for crack. I see people stealing stuff out of cars. I see people running down the street with a fully decorated Christmas tree. What you gonna do with that? I thought you can sell a shoe. You didn't have to sell both the shoes getting crack. People selling one shoe. They're doing what they had to do. It was very strange. So they had these behaviors that were quintessential crackhead behavior. So I'm now, by this time in high school, I'm the only one. All my other siblings have moved up and went out, and it's just me and my mom right now. So one evening, I'm in my home, minding my own business. I hear something in the house. I'm like, what the heck is going on? So I'm a little paranoid because things were happening. I kind of wondered, my mother was asleep. It's like after 12 a.m. So I'm creeping up and see what the heck is this noise? So I got me a bat and I'm creeping and someone's in the kitchen. I'm like, what the heck? So I get closer and I open up the kitchen and realize it's the neighborhood crackhead had to snuck in my house. He was in the kitchen. He was cooking. It was like an omelet. Like, it was the strangest thing. First, I was pissed at him. Then I was kind of impressed. He had eggs and cheese. I almost asked him to make me one before he left. I chased this dude down the house and out of my house. I was so pissed. I'm running down the street. I was a pretty good athlete, but let me tell you something. Never underestimate the quickness of a crackhead. So I'm walking back, wind in my face, and had no shoes on. I'm thinking, jeez, that boy is DEON. You got to get the hell out of LA somehow, some way. So after high school, while I'm in high school, another violent thing happened in LA. Crack resulted in a lot of gang wars and drug wars, making LA one of the most violent cities in the United States at the time in the mid-'80s. People were getting shot and killed left and right. It was a horrible place to be, absolutely horrible. And I'm going through high school at the time. I'm a prime suspect for everything, right? So with this violence going on, you have to be careful what side of the track you went on. You have to be careful what you were wearing. And I was unaware. Like my older brother Herman would always say, right? All it takes is one bad decision. It can cost you everything. So watch where you go and watch where you are. So one thing I did do was got my first job at this time. I got my first job in KFC, Kentucky Fried Chicken. Now get my own stuff. First thing I got when my first paycheck was some real doggone Nikes. Real Nikes. I made sure the food was going up, right? So I worked the closing shift. So I get off the school, off my shift. Another item I bought was a fashion statement at the time. You know anything about the 80s? You had to have one of them big old puffy starter jackets. It was a sports jacket. Everybody had one, right? So I had one. I thought, boy, you couldn't tell me nothing. I had me some chicken. I had me some money. What else you need? You give a brother money, a jacket, and some chicken. You on top of the world. So I got after I got my paycheck. I bought myself a new jacket. I had some money in my pocket. I had $71.51. I was feeling good. I'm on my way home, and I'm running through these neighborhoods. Now remember, different neighborhoods, different colors. What am I wearing? A big old red starter jacket. So I'm rolling through a neighborhood on my way home, because we were moving all the time, in a neighborhood where the neighborhood drug dealers see me on this bus. And I'm thinking about this all the time, worrying about getting shot and killed. You heard about it. It was so common you didn't even hear about it on the news anymore. This knucklehead sees me on the bus. His name was Moon. I'll never forget him. He gets on the bus, walks right to the back. I was already paranoid. As soon as this man gets on the bus, my heart is pumping through my doggone chest. I'm paranoid. I'm about to have an anxiety attack. He walks straight to the back of the bus. What up with the red jacket, cuz? He grabs me like, I'm like, wait a minute. I backed up. I'm wait a minute. He wasn't that big. So I'm like, wait a minute. You're going to have to take this. But then he steps back, pulls out a gun. I just froze. I'm thinking, this is it. I'm going out like this. I thought about, this was my nightmare every night going through this stuff, coming wherever I went. This man grabbed me, did what he's going to do. Took my money, took my jacket. He even took my chicken, which was dirty. If you're going to jack somebody, at least leave them something to eat. That was just trifling. So he took that. But from that moment on, I was so paranoid about everywhere I went. I was paranoid about what I wore. I was paranoid about who I was with and so forth. Because at this time, everything was happening. And unfortunately, our situation was so unstable, we continued to move. And I made a promise to myself that no matter where we moved, I was not going to change high school. That was a little bit of stability. The only little bit of stability I had was in high school. I was an athlete, played a little football, played a little basketball, had a little reputation. I was not moving. So Unfortunately, we moved on 80th and Hoover, and I went to Dorsey High. Excuse me. And in LA, Dorsey's on the west side of LA, which is a blood neighborhood gang. 80th and Hoover is way on the west side, Hoover Crips blue. So I could not wear my own school colors because I don't want to be affiliated, right? So I literally got out of practice 7, 8 o'clock, bus ride about an hour to 45 minutes. I literally had to change clothes while I was on the bus. Couldn't wear my Dorsey gear, couldn't wear blue because of the gangs, couldn't wear red, couldn't wear black, I just started wearing plaid everywhere. I went to the mall and got me, I went to the flea market and got me plaid. I just wasn't wearing plaid. Ain't no plaid gangs around me. I was just trying to be safe, right? That was how I had to adjust. The other challenge was the paranoid process of me having to get home every day. The challenge of having to go through a neighborhood where these new persons, you do not want to be new in the same neighborhood. These were ruthless killers. They will take you out just by being in the wrong place at the wrong time. So that bus ride was traumatizing at night because I did not want these new guys to see this new guy running through their neighborhood. It was over. So I literally had to sneak around cars through alleys just to get home, right? Going through this, I'm thinking, you gotta get the hell out of LA. How you gonna do this? So eventually when I would get home, my apartment was facing Hoover Boulevard, my window in my bedroom. Everything happened on Hoover Boulevard. There was prostitution, there was drug wars, there was gangs, there was hustling, everything, you heard it all. It was a ringside seat right outside my window. When I finally get home after going through all this trauma of getting home, and I get home and I relax a little bit, as soon as I take a breath to lay down after all of that, 10 o'clock at night, pop, 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 I hear gunshots. The gunshot was not uncommon. It was like almost as common as hearing a car horn. But this was dangerously close to my window. So I didn't think much of it, but it was kind of close. Later, I hear commotions outside my window. A few minutes later, I hear emergency vehicles out the window. Then I had the nerve to look out my window, and unfortunately, I saw a young man who had been shot up the street. He had collapsed right under my bedroom window. And as the emergency vehicle was trying to work on this young man, I could see them finally covering him up. This is an image you would never get out of your head. Seeing a human being being covered up like that, and I could tell it was a young man, late teens, early teens, that won't be going home. And that was the very situation that I feared every night going home. That was traumatizing, right under my bedroom. From then on, I never slept on that bed again. I would take my mattress and tilt it up in front of the bed, tilting it up, because I was so paranoid about a stray bullet coming through your bedroom window. That's how I slept every night. Imagine having a good night's sleep under those circumstances. So that was my situation. I'm like, wow, how are you gonna get through this? You gotta get the hell out of LA. That's the only ticket. So how was I gonna do that? And this is where it's important to stay what they call trauma informed. My teachers were so disconnected. They was, DEON, showing up for school late. Why are you showing up for school late? Why are you sleeping in class? Why are you studying for the SAT test? Why are you not studying for the finals? They had no idea. All I was trying to do was get home without getting shot and killed. No idea what I was really going, what this young man was going through. But I did start realizing if I'm going to get the hell out of here, I'm gonna have to go to somebody's university, right? I don't care what university. It could have been Otisburg University in South Dakota. I didn't give a damn. If I sent everybody a letter or something, I had just enough GPA. I wasn't a great athlete, but I had something. And like my older brother again, Herman would say, you can have 99 no's. All you need is what? One yes. One yes. One of the happiest notice I got in the mail one day was my acceptance letter to San Francisco State University. Oh, one of the happiest moments. And the next powerful, right, the most powerful letter I got was another, that dude, my older brother Herman, he bought me a bus ticket, one-way bus ticket from LA to San Francisco. These are two of the most important documents of my life. I was like my freedom. Even though I was slave, like a slave. I was gonna be free. I was going north, and I was gonna be free. That's how I treated those two documents. My acceptance letter and my one-way bus ticket to San Francisco. Then it happened. June 1986, Dorsey High graduation. 900 students. Our class was so large that we had to move it to the LA Sports Arena. My friends all celebrating, everybody having, what you gonna do? What we gonna do? We free, we in LA, we rapping, what we gonna do? What we gonna do? I don't know what y'all gonna do, but I'm getting the hell out of LA. I made an arrangement for my family that night. I didn't go home that night. I went from the sports arena to the bus station. Everything I had in my life, within 18 years of my life, I barely had the clothes on my back and a backpack. In that backpack was a pair of cookies, pack of cookies, a pair of drawers, some real Adidas with 3 stripes, and my bus ticket, right? And after all the drama, after all the pain, after all the stress, I finally got the hell out of LA, and finally, I found a way.
Wow, that was one hell of a story. So we'll forgive DEON that he happened to be wearing the baseball hat of a certain team. Some of us up here get a little upset about. But anyway, let's hear it for DEON again. Yeah. All right. All right, our final performer is Fontana Butterfield in Flower Child. Named after her mother's acid trip, Fontana was born on July 4th, 1967, to a self-professed flower child in San Francisco. Fontana and her mother grow up together, hitchhiking across the country, living in communes and escaping cults. Please welcome Fontana Butterfield.
I'm standing at the side of a dusty country road, at the edge of a dark forest, holding out my tiny, soft, and slightly plump right hand, with the thumb sticking aggressively out. Somehow there's a street light at this crossroads. It flickers throughout the night, threatening the deepest of darkest at any moment. I am 4 years old. I think I can control my fate if I try hard enough. Dear God, I'll be so, so good if you make the next car stop. Stop! Now! Stop now! Stop, please! Okay. Stop crying. Oh, make your face pretty and nice. You stupid! I wiped the snot on the cuff of my faded jean jacket, cursing with all my 40-pound might at the cars that whip by, leaving us in their dust. She is there, laying on the bags that hold everything we own. My mother, Marjorie. Busted flat in Baton Rouge, waiting for a train when I was feeling just as faded as my jeans. Fontana, keep sending out good vibes. Mad vibes won't make the car stop. Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for you are with me. Your rod and your staff, they comfort me. I want a bed and food and walls. I am raw with the weight of looking for a home. I wonder when happily ever after begins. Freedom's just another word for nothing left to lose. Somehow we get a ride and then another. And we make it to Rainbow Farm in Drain, Oregon in the spring of 1972. 300 acres of forests, creeks, gardens, pastures, and magical fairy rings, and a room of our own. We sleep together on a single mattress on the floor upstairs in the main house. Mornings at Rainbow Farm begin at dawn, chanting Om in the meditation room. I feel the wood floor hum with the melodic voices of the flower children of Rainbow Farm. Oh. After breakfast, I scamper to my perch on the railing of the front porch of the main house, waiting for my pony Raisin to appear. Raisin trots up from the barn. I jump onto his bare back, grabbing his rough mane, holding on for dear life as we bolt down the hill. Preschool was me and my gang of naked hippie flower children, riding our ponies all over those 300 acres. For snack time, we'd saunter into the cornfield and pause to grab a corn from the corn stalk and eat it raw. It tastes alive. We make our way to the edge of the garden to stop at the teepee. Oh, yeah. There is a real-life Native American man living in a teepee on this hippie commune. His name is Bill. Later, when I'm big, like now, I think about Bill and how these earnest, young, mostly white men and women blatantly appropriated Native American culture. I don't know what Bill thought of this at the time, but for me, he was solid and kind and taught me how to play chess. It's summer. I'm in the back of a hot cargo van with all 7 of the Rainbow family kids, a tumble of blankets, wild hair, and the crumbs of many rice cakes. Not only do we kids not have seatbelts, we don't have seats. Oh, Mommy, I miss Raisin. Why can't he come with us? Fontana, no, you can't take a pony on a road trip. But why though? Fontana, stop. You'll see Raisin when we get back. Why are we going to Colorado? I don't want to have my birthday in Colorado. Colorado. Did Bill tell you about the prophecy? What's a prophecy? According to prophecy, 200 years ago, the Native American nations predicted that the great white buffalo would reappear on Tabletop Mountain in Granby, Colorado on July 4th, 1972. My birthday! When the great-great-grandchildren of the white conqueror would grow their hair long, rebel against society, and gather together for my birthday. Sure. Mommy, what's a society? And why is it called Tabletop Mountain? Is it because it's a mountain which looks like a table? That looks like a table. Shh. Now let's try and sleep for a while. Mommy, will I get to have a birthday cake this year? We'll see. Shh now. We are one in the Spirit, we are one in the Lord. They will know we are brothers by our love, by our love. We arrive in Granby, Colorado, and the base of Tabletop Mountain. We hike 8 miles up. I keep my eyes peeled for the great white buffalo. Finally, we reach a clearing, and the whole world opens up. A group of mostly naked men dig a trench by the forest line. A woman with a baby on her breast squats, forming bricks out of mud and grass. Tents are created with rope and tarp. Huge outdoor kitchens, bonfires, chanting, drum circles, and long-haired hippie, tie-dye clad dancers mingle with newly returned vets, their faces filled with shock and awe. Everyone is stoned. Hey, little lady, isn't it wild? Everyone's here to celebrate your birthday. Hey, far out, it's your birthday. Wait, your name is Fontana, and you were born on the 4th of July. What a trip. How old are you now? I'm gonna be 5, but I can't be 5 until I have my cake. That evening, sitting around the epic snaking bonfire circle, waiting for the white buffalo to appear, songs are sung, joints are passed, and out of the smoky swirl, my cake appears. Carrot with cream cheese frosting, decorated with flowers, and even a candle. And then hundreds of flower children at their peak sing their hearts out to me. The great white buffalo never appeared. We make it back to Rainbow Farm, and Raisin meets me at the gate. That winter, we experienced record cold and snowfall. There are about 40 tribesmen, women, and children living off my mother's one welfare check. The roads are closed. There is one pot of lentil stew on the wood-burning stove, right next to the kettle of peyote tea. Oh, sure, honey, you can have a little sip. It's fine. Record snow, the roads are closed. We're starving. The men decide to hunt a deer. Bird Beckett, a kind man with fluffy hair, the founder of this experiment, fashions together a bow and some arrows, and the men stalk a buck up and down the snowy hill for hours, until finally, snap! From my perch on the porch, I see red crimson blood flowing down the snowy hill, and the men are ecstatic. Meat! We have meat! The smell of the venison cooking in the open fire in the yard is so intense. Garrick, what's that? Venison. The word sounds chocolatey. I look up at him with huge eyes, drunk with the smell of the venison, and perhaps a sip of peyote tea. Garrick, slowly, so I know it's important, offers me the heart of the deer. I take the sacrament in both hands, cradling the musky meat in my tiny fingers. It is smoky, oh, and juicy, and I am alive. That Christmas at Rainbow Farm, I received my first real store-bought Christmas present. a large-sized Hershey chocolate bar. I open it slowly, crinkling the silver paper, smelling the intoxicating milk chocolate tingle my nose and raise the hairs on my arms, salivating as the first perfect square melts on my tiny pink tongue. I savor my Hershey bar for days. It becomes my little buddy, my secret, my superpower against the honey, the agave, and the carob. We make it to spring. And then, for some reason, we leave Rainbow Farm and we are on the road again. One morning, I wake up in a real bed made of rich, dark wood. I peer up through a cloud of crisp, fluffy softness and see white flowing curtains and a closet that matches the bed. I open it and see expertly folded white towels and feel squishy, soft carpet under my feet. I listen to the quiet, lay on the clean carpet. We can't stay here, we have to leave. What? Mommy, why? Mommy, I like it here. Mommy, you always say that love is the answer, and that's what they say. Mommy, I want to stay with the love family. She gets down on the floor and wraps her arms around me. Her hands are soft, fingers long. Her chest envelops me. She smells like fresh baked bread and vanilla. I feel her warm attention glow through me. Fontana, if we stay here, I'm gonna have to screw the leader, Love Israel, and I don't want to. Hardly seems fair to me. His name is Love. But still, I know. The energy changes when he enters the room. I hear a hush and feel a prickly, better behave feeling that grows like shame. We leave in a hurry, and we are back on the road again. She is hopeful. I am resentful. Well, I don't know the word yet, but the feeling blooms. We make it to Sonoma County. I go to school. For lunch, Mom packs me chapatis with miso and tahini. I traded for bologna on white bread with butter. I learn about the world. And then one night in our cozy new home in Forestville, California, the door opens and the Birdman appears. He fills the doorway with golden light. He looks to me just like the pictures of Jesus from the Bible story books that I steal from my dentist office. He's beautiful. And my mother turns into this fluid, sunny, shimmering, sensual, pottery-making goddess. And I'm here for all of it. The first time they drop acid together, I gather rose hips to lay in their laps. Their first movie date, I bring my 8-year-old crush. We see Last Tango in Paris. That first Christmas, after they're married, the Birdman takes me to a random forest on a hill to pick the Christmas tree. Real daddy-daughter stuff. He watches me walk around each Christmassy tree we find, presenting each option with a flourish. I reject each one, more basking in all of this attention and consideration. And then I look up and I see the tippy top of a 25-foot tree. Just the tippity top. Even on all sides, pointy at the top for the star. Perfect. Can we get that one? You mean the top of that tree up there? Yeah? Is that okay? But of course, my dear, an honor and a pleasure. And I watch him climb that 25-foot tree carrying a chainsaw. cut the top off, drop it down, and lay the tree at my feet. Later, he will show up for every school play, every car breakdown, every move from every home. I hug him. He smells like wood chips, old cars, and clean earth. But don't tell them that the tree is a little sparse in the back. 8th grade. I'm 12. Skipped a grade. I'm all feathered hair, newly sprouted boobs, and tentative confidence. I'm living a double life. At school, I'm finally sort of fitting in, but we move a lot, so I'm constantly the new girl. Fontana, like Montana. We now live in a blue hippie school bus. My daddy has refurbished into a home, toilet and all. Yeah, a classic hippie school bus, complete with white lace curtains. My mother sews on her antique singer. I go to the school dance. The cafetorium has never looked better. Colored lights, disco ball, and Blondie. I will drive past your house. I brought my best friend, Lisa Montgomery, with me. I don't even go here. We hit the girls' room to reapply our Bonnie Bell lip smacker. One way or another, I'm gonna find you. I'm gonna get you. I've just visited my rich Aunt Myrna, who took me to get a haircut at a salon. I'm wearing my pink Ditto's jeans, the rainbow tube top, and my brand new matching rainbow platform flops, flip. Steve Fox and Stacey Miller have broken up. Okay, God, don't have a cow. Lisa, you don't understand. This is Steve Fox and Stacey Miller. No one thought this could happen. This is my chance. Okay, Guy. Just don't forget, your dad is picking us up at 11. I know. Oh, thank God I told him to park at the church across the field. Can you imagine anyone seeing us getting into that hippie school bus? We can't let that happen. I see Steve. Steve Fox. I mean, his last name is Fox. And boy, howdy is he. He's leaning against the wall, feathered brown hair, tan bootleg cords, and a green Izod polo. I want to be that little alligator on his chest. I puff up and approach. Flip. Oh, hi, Steve. So, you want to dance? Steve's eyes float down to my tube top. Yeah. Oh, okay, but I only dance to slow songs. Oh, yeah, doy. Flip. It's way past 10 o'clock. And still no slow song. I'm freaking out. Ring my bell. And then suddenly, Donna Summer's last dance comes on. The crowd's part. We walk towards each other. Flip. He smells like ivory soap and double bubble gum. The alligator on his shirt presses into my chest. I melt into him like a Hershey bar on a hot day. He looks deep into my eyes. I lick my lips and close my eyes. The music changes. I didn't know this moment was so. Why, Donna Summer, why? Steve shrugs and pulls away, pretty much doing the moonwalk. Lisa pounces on me, having an actual cow. Fontana, we have to go. It's 11 o'clock. Now, goodbye, Steve. The world is so cruel. Wait, we'll walk you out. No, it's okay. My dad's meeting us at the church. It's not safe out there. We're coming with you. Don't follow us, please. We run with all our might. The tube top can't take the strain. I'm pulling it up as the platform wedges sink into the soft earth. Hey girls, wait up! Steve is totally freaking out. My dad swings open the bus door just as we dive in and closes it behind us. He's sitting cross-legged with his huge scraggly beard, mustache, and hair. And as usual, he's in his full-on fake British accent. Well, good evening, ladies. How was the dance? Oh my God, Dad, go now. Dad starts at the engine. I hide under the built-in sofa. My face melts with humiliation. Outside, the boys start banging on the side of the bus. Hey, dirty hippie, let the girl go. I'm calling my dad. He's shit. Then Dad opens the bus door and in crazy hippie mode yells, "Wah!" and tears off into the night. We moved right after that. And I never saw them again.
I'm gonna be taking another vow, can I? Don't go away, but get ready to sit down.
Okay.
Because you have questions to answer.
Okay.
So let's get some stools or chairs, whichever you prefer. Yeah, your Fontana, they get to breathe.
Yeah. I just really want to shout out that we have Last Dance playing. Yeah. That is incredible. It's wonderful.
So let me check. Sometimes it takes a while to get things going. Does anybody have a question to get things started? People are a little bit shy at first. Yes, sir.
What was the first thing you did when you got to San Francisco?
Oh, I connected with a fraternity. And Phi Beta Sigma, these brothers, some of these brothers are here, by the way. Right. Right. And the reason why I joined that fraternity, only because, not because I dedicated to what they're called, was because they were the right color. I couldn't wear red, so they were red. They wore blue. I was traumatized by red. So one fraternity was red, one I couldn't mess with them. With the blue, I thought these brothers are comfortable, so I went with them. That's the only thing I don't think they know that.
I also was in a sorority at San Francisco State.
Right on.
Lambda Delta Lambda.
Okay.
Who's got another question?
What inspired all of you to begin your stories?
Well, I've told a lot of these stories to therapists, to friends, and constantly, consistently being told, "Oh God, you have to put this in the show. This is great for a show." And so I took my wife, Mary Guzman, and my directors here. And in 2020, I was so burnt out working online constantly. And so she's like, "I'm paying for you to go to David Ford's class, and you're gonna do this." And I'm like, "Oh, fine." And it was magical. And for a first day, my first day, and so he goes, "Great, you're new. Why don't you start?" And thank God I had just found an old journal where I'd written a lot of that stuff down. And so I'm like, oh, so I read it and I got a lot of great feedback and here we are.
My husband and I decided, we did learn how to travel on our own. It took us 10 years. And when I was 54 and he was 61, we decided to hell with work and we retired early. And the first thing we did was we crossed the US on our bikes, the Atlantic Ocean, and then we came back as far as Texas. Our second trip, we crossed the continent of Australia. And everybody kept saying, you should write a book, you should write a book. And so I started writing in 2019 and nobody understood, you know, what's a pannier and where's the tour guide and aren't there 20 people? And in June of 2020, I had the aha moment that I had to explain the backstory of how Jim and I went from just being fairly typical parents, working parents, to choosing to travel the world this fairly unorthodox way. So it was kind of fun because this was June of 2020. And I pulled out all these journals going back to 77, actually. And I was traveling again. While everybody was under lockdown COVID, I spent that year and a half writing the story, rereading the journals that I hadn't read since we had taken the trips and got the photographs out. So I actually spent that year and a half writing. So this first book explains that evolution of craziness. And the next book, actually halfway through, is the trip across the United States in 2008.
Thank you, Johnny.
Two things for me was my older brother said it's better to laugh about it than cry about it. So we can either laugh about it or cry about it. Everything's not a laughing matter, but the traumatic upbringing that I experienced affected my siblings very differently. Some very negatively. Some of them took the same substances that my mother took. But it happened to me different. I just started thinking, okay, better to make light of it, and that was my healing. So it was therapeutic to have humor. So when I went to San Francisco State, I started hanging out at this the End Zone Comedy Club back in the day. Remember everyone? Go back way back, right? End Zone. And at the same time, I was working at the juvenile hall as a counselor, telling the same stories and life skills to these young kids that I was telling in these nightclubs. So one of my partners said, you know what? You might as well put these two things together, because I was using that humor as a teaching tool as a youth counselor. And that evolved into the book Raised in Hell that was published in 2014. And again, it came to this. So I have copies of that available if you're interested. And that's how we come to the story Raised in Hell, the human hardship of a dysfunctional upbringing.
I need to write a book.
Yeah. Just record it. AI will do it for you. Somebody got AI. You could have time.
Who else has a question?
Where did you move after Sonoma County?
After Sonoma County, I went to San Francisco State University. Yeah, and I lived in Lower Haight. I paid $250 a month.
Oh my God.
Yeah, that's a good day.
So your commune was in Sonoma County?
No, the commune was in Oregon,
Oh,
Drain, Oregon, and it's part of I don't know if I need to put this in the show, but it was the first rainbow family gathering that they still have every year on July 4th. I have not been back.
Question. Yeah, please.
First of all, San Francisco State only graduates the coolest people.
Nah.
I graduated from there
San
too.
Francisco State graduates the coolest people.
I mean,
My question to all of you are, what's been your family's reaction to some of your stories? I can imagine some of it's so personal, and you know the humor you guys bring, and just the way you present it. But has your family had any reaction to some of the stories?
It's a challenge because everyone doesn't receive that trauma the same way. So people have different coping mechanisms. So some of my family members did not want to be mentioned in the book because it brought up some sore spots, as you can imagine. Why would you be putting much dirty laundry out there? But what they don't know is that my mom, before she passed, was sitting right here in the audience while I'm telling these stories, validating right? And I used to ask her, what were you doing during the 60s and all this historical? She said, I was drunk, I didn't give a damn. So her humor was how she dealt with it. So I had no problem telling these stories because it's actually, it's a success story because she overcame those things and raised all these kids under very challenging circumstances. So despite the pushback I got from some of my family members, and to this day, they will bring up something that happened 30 years ago and be in tears over it because it's still an open wound. So it's challenging.
DEON, I have a question.
I think,
sorry.
no, I think Ann.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry.
I think there's
Okay,
some,
next.
is the camera still doing the Zoom thing?
Yeah.
I think I've got some siblings watching from out of state, actually. Hello there. Some of my family members were very supportive and helped read some of my chapters and stuff like that. Yeah.
I found my birth father last November, and I believe he's watching right now.
Nice.
So this is their first time seeing me perform, doing something I've never done before.
Wow.
And my wife directed, and I have to say there were some moments in our living room where she would just stop and go, "This really happened." All 100% true, everything you said. And then my beautiful son, Orlando. Yay. And this is the first time seeing it, so we'll find out in a while.
Yeah, Melissa, my question is for everybody, but I specifically was thinking about you, DEON, when I thought of the question. Because I'm just wondering, I'm not familiar with this format here. So are you all developing larger shows, and what we got to experience tonight was what you have kind of ready to share?
Yes, for me, yeah. There's a lot. I had to cut out a lot of stuff, so I've got stuff already.
Like,
yeah. I'd like to get it to like 60, 70.
Oh, great! Yeah. I want more.
Yeah, good.
Yes. My question for you, DEON, is what do you want to do with it? Because I can see this, being so impactful for you, going into schools.
Wow.
I'm just wondering what you want to do with that.
Thank you for that. Because it's all there's anecdotes. It's hard to get all that in 20 minutes.
Yeah.
But I have some people here that have invested in the possibility of growing this into an hour-long, full 1 hour, one-man show. And to elaborate on that, based on the book, you only put so much in a 256-page book, right? But the want is to get this out there because no matter what, this stuff happened to me 30 years ago. But there are people going through this stuff right now. I work in youth services right now, and these stories are relevant to the young men I'm working with right now that are going through trauma. And the way I cope with it is helping, it's therapeutic for them. So it's a message for people who've gone through foster care, parents who are struggling, people who are going through violence and substance abuse. It can be a very therapeutic and very meaningful tool for anyone who's going through any type of upbringing, which is everyone. Everybody got a family story, I'm sure there is. So the end game is to make this a motion picture and start with a one-man show. And I got some people here who might be instrumental in trying to make that happen.
Great.
I know this one.
Are you guys all for authors? And are you doing different sets? Are you guys gonna or are you just perfecting on one set, or are you gonna have like 3 different sets and use them in different things, or different crowds, different,
I didn't answer her question, but I was actually walking Valencia Street last fall, trying to sell my book into bookstores and bike shops, and I walked past here, and I used to usher here before COVID, so I thought, I should try marketing my book by doing this. So until tonight, I was a virgin in this line of work. This was all built around trying to market my book, and I don't know about taking it to more fancier venues or whatever, but
Well,
I'm used
there
to.
is no venue fancier than
Prime time, baby. Prime time.
Yeah, touche.
Yeah.
So I have to digest a little bit before I
Yeah.
decide what I'm doing next.
Yeah.
Well, that was a challenge for me. Thank you for that question. Is that I did this before a few years ago, and I wanted to move a different part of the story because this is, there's more depth into it. There's some more characters of my mom and more characters of my older brother who's a hero in this story, and I wasn't able to get his story out. But the book brings out this guy being a lifesaver in so many different levels. So the next part of it will be to elaborate on those characteristics of my older brother who helped me navigate through so much, right? And so I want to really bring out those characters when we get to the larger six. There's one here, the opportunity to do, what's it called? The up and coming, what's it called?
March Rising?
March Rising. There's an opportunity to do something like that. We can expand it to like maybe 45, 60 minutes.
I'm looking for a book auction. So this 20 minutes I'm gonna do again here. I'm gonna perfect it, and then I'm gonna do solo Sundays in July, which is another solo thing. But we're gonna continue working. I just had to get through tonight. To build all the stories in, and I'd love to, tour the country, tour the world, tell the story. It's so fun to do. Really, really fun.
Fringe festivals. You should meet up with some other solo performers through here. I mean, people do the circuit here and in Canada. It's amazing. There's so many fringe festivals where people are able to, really perfect their performances. It's very cool. Okay, I have a question. I'm gonna just make it up on the spot here. So DEON, I get it, right? When you have a story like yours, there's kind of two ways to go, right? To laugh or to cry. Are there ever times when you're sort of making the audience laugh like you did tonight? You ever step out and go, man, that was fucking a nightmare? I think we heard the words, right? But it was done in more of a humorous way, right? But do you ever sort of feel like, does it ever hit you? Wow, this is a lot. This is like much deeper than maybe, I don't know if I'm asking the question. It's clear that you went through this horrible thing, but I guess, do you ever feel like doing it more dramatically or?
Well, that's what I'm working on. I'm not an actor. I'm a storyteller. And that's what someone else to coach me on those things. So the acting part is to, I'm coached by Badger because he's saying that who's done this before professionally. There's ways you have to, whatever those emotions that I felt, I have to somehow, transport and manifest that through this story and through this character. So I need to work on development because you need to feel what my mom went through because she wasn't just the bad guy. She was also a nurturer. But then this young man who's all of this tall, the giant of my life, Mr. Herman, who's all about 5'6", and he gets shorter every time I tell his story. But he's a huge human being, but he's that soft. So I need to bring that character out. So when I work in my line of work right now with these young people from Larkin Street and they're homeless and they're going through some of the same things I went through, that pain come out and I help them by telling my story. We become kindred in drama and we connect. And when you work in this business, you got to connect before you correct. So when I feel that pain, I tell those stories, I'm in a way reliving that in a way that is healing these current generations. So I don't want to oppress those feelings and oppress it. I want to make them feel that because they're going through the same thing. And it makes me an effective youth worker.
Thank you.
I don't have a question. I just wanted to tell DEON how proud I am.
Oh, thank you. And I have a question about maybe you said this and I missed it at some point, but do you have more bike trips planned or like those big bike trips? That's it.
Well, when we retired in 2008 and I was 54 and Jim was 61, I told him I would only do it until I became a grandmother because once my kids had kids, I wanted to be around for that experience. So I got in 8 years. We did 30,000 miles,
Oh,
21 countries in 8 years. And then we stayed home and helped with the grandkids, and now COVID's happened, and I don't know that I will. We talk about maybe doing it, but I think we may have aged out of that, and maybe the next part of my life will be writing the more interesting stories. For example, we got stuck in a 38-hour storm in Mongolia, and our tent was destroyed, and I think that's what I'll do. I think maybe I've aged out of it.
It might be more fun to write about it than to relive.
Right.
It's a very difficult taste to acquire, and an awful lot of people thought that we had multiple screws loose. But if you do it, if you figure out how to mentally and physically travel this world on the power of your own muscles, you see things that you don't see in a car or a plane or you know, a motorcycle. Right. And it's just really transformed us, what we did together and saw together, and the way we choose to experience things is much more low level, you know, upfront, local kinds of things rather than glamorous beachfront kind of stuff. Mm-hmm. So we are very different people now, and it really was very much because of that magical 8 days that we had no idea what we were doing.
Fontana.
Oh, God.
For you. No, it's not. It seemed to me when I was reading your bio quickly, I admit, and your performance tonight sort of reminded me of what I read there. You have a lot of acting experience, I gather.
Yeah.
So how was it for you to take that acting experience, right? DEON talks about storytelling, and you're right, they are different things, although they're connected. How was it for you to sort of, rather than be in a show with a bunch of other people and lines that other people wrote, how was it for you to be up here performing your own writing, your own life story?
It was strangely hard to memorize, and I had arguments with the writer. Why do you describe this in so much detail? It's like, well, that's the writing. Right. It was really intense portraying my mother, because I have a lot of trauma from that relationship that continues past her death. Isn't that interesting? And so, yeah, it was definitely a raw experience. And, you know, we all manage stage fright performers, but this was a different thing. And I had a really good friend leave me some messages today, who is a solo performer, and she has like 6 shows. She does them all over the place. And she was like, yeah, girl, yeah, it's intense. It feels like a blur. And also not working off another person, which, you know, my training and my whole deal, it's like all my attention is on the other person, and the other person is me. It's like, crazy. Yeah, it's a little crazy.
So now that you've performed this right here tonight, how do you feel now?
I felt so good. There was so much love, and this audience was so great. And yeah, I just needed to get it done. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. And now I'm really excited to do it again in 2 weeks. It'll probably be the same because I memorized this. Right. So different, longer variations will be coming. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes.
Perfect.
Yeah.
You know, when I think of cult life, and it's very negative connotations, and your portrayal was very pleasant. You know, it reminded me of happened with my parents. Is there a dark side that you're going to introduce to your story at all? Because,
there are definitely.
Or was it flowers?
What a great question. Thank you.
Right.
Yeah. So there's 2 examples in this part of the show that you saw. One is Rainbow Farm, which was glorious, and I wouldn't trade that for the world. The Love Family, I had to cut out a part where I talk about the atrocities of the Love Family.
Yeah.
And want to look that up later, have a good time with that.
Is it in the book?
It's but not only did all of the women have to sleep with the leader, he fathered like 9 children with 9 different mothers. I mean, you know, that happens. But also like drug taking was required for spiritual enlightenment. And a couple of guys died from sniffing industrial solvent.
Oh my God.
And you can go to doctors or wear eyeglasses. So just wild. But we were there for a blip. And I, you know, was like, ooh, sheets, towels. Why can't we stay here?
You have to take it out of the show.
It has to be 20 minutes.
Oh,
Yeah.
wow.
Yeah, it's going back in.
Okay. I was like, that's juicy.
I know. It was very hard to cut, you know. Tina DeLeo.
Yes, a wonderful performer, been on this very stage many times. Any last questions before we wrap things up? Are you sitting on one thing I'd like to ask, but I don't think I should. Come on. All right, it seems like that all the questions have been asked, so I'm going to ask one final one.
I think good questions. Yeah, great.
Well, Marsh audiences, best audiences. DEON, starting with you, and to all 3 of you, how can we find out more about you? You know, usually these days it means online.
Yes.
Where can we find
Well,
you?
I'm still the website guy, DeonDprice.com.
Okay.
Very simple. And social media as well. The Raising Hell has a website, and we'll have it has a social media page on Facebook as well. And again, if those who are interested, I have copies of the book that we can gather at the end. That's it. DeON Price and social media, Raising Hell. And not hard to find these days. DEON, by the way. No I, the I is feminine. Right, remember that. DEON said the I is feminine. It should be I and DEON. Remember that. I argue with people all the time. Yeah, exactly.
I have a website too, and I'm on Instagram. And I'm plugging away, trying to market my book. It's funny, I found that writing is easier than writing, but marketing is a lot harder than any other.
Well, I do want to say, of all the performers I've seen, and Alexa, I think, has seen over the years of Monday Night March, we've had some people with books. You work that into the end of your performance so smoothly.
Oh,
I was impressed.
I have the copy. I did bring a few copies of my book, and I will be presenting here, there, and everywhere wherever I can find anybody. I did have a lot of fun. There's this new place on Union Street. It's one of those remote places, Neon. But the guy's really active in trying to get people in the city to do things there. And once a month he has, this might be interesting. Once a month, he gets 4 people to stand up for 5 minutes and say whatever they want about who they are and what they're doing. So I did it the first week of April. And one of the guys was running for mayor, and his piece though was on how to be a first-time home buyer in San Francisco. There's 3 major programs that if you've never owned a home, if you do the paper right, you can actually become a home buyer. And then one of the other guys was, he started up an alcohol-free bar in the outer Sunset by Judah and the beach. And he talked about making all these alcohol-free drinks and stuff. So that was really a lot of fun to stumble on something like that. And I met somebody from Next Village there, which is this senior community in the northeast part of the city, and I think they're going to have me come and speak at one of their events. So I'm going to meet her on Thursday. So it's
You're getting out there.
Yes, and I do have some business cards as well if anybody wants one afterwards.
FontanaButterfield.com, my name. And I'm going to be doing solo Sundays in the Sunset on July 21st. which I just realized is the anniversary of my stepfather, the Birdman's death. And that just hit me pretty wildly, right? What are the chances?
Well, how about one more round of applause for our performance?
Thank you for having me.
Thank you guys for coming. And I want to thank all of you for coming on this live here without an audience. Back into work. It's not the one. Thank you.
Hi, wait. Hi, I'm so happy you guys were here. Oh, let's go. I have no idea.